Yeah, Alhamdulillah. It's been a lovely week.
Just watch this video, and as usual, I'll come back to tell you how I feel.
Alhamdulillah, it's been a lovely week. A very quick one. I was chatting with one sister at work today. She's a Yoruba lady. But she married to an European guy. Then she told me she just bought a house last week. And she's been in the UK for 20 years. But she just bought her first house last week. So I was like, wow, that's cool. Is it? Well, yeah, that's when it's cool for her. But that's when it's comfortable for her. Yeah, that's it. She's been here for 20 years and she just bought her first house. So when we bought our first house in 2 weeks, we bought our first house in 6 months. We bought our first house in COS. I don't understand. Please, who is pursuing you? Like, who is running after you? That only who is like, where are you going? Where are you going? Why are you running? Why are you running? Where are you going? You can see her. She's looking fresh and clean, you know. She bought her first house in 20 years. So the house is not going nowhere. You can buy it in 10 years, 20 years, 5 years. But why are you buying house in the first 6 months? Do you even know this country? Eh? You've only been here. Do you even know this country? You've been here 6 months. Do you know anything about this country? Wallahi, you've been here 6 months. You don't know nothing about this country. 5 years, sir, you don't know. You haven't know anything about this country yet. We went and buy houses. Instagram. We bought our first house in 2 years. We bought our first house in 6 months. We bought our first house with COS. Where are you running to? Who is pursuing you? That's somebody. She bought her first house after 20 years. 20 damn years. 20 years. That's cool. You can see her. She's looking fresh. Everything. She has no everything. Because she's living here, Gemma. In and out to go. But you walk, get back, literally. Àwọn àṣìṣe àwọn àgbẹ̀ jẹ́ ká máa lọ ọpọlọ wa jọ.
I have nothing against his brother. I have nothing. I'm just using his videos as an example because I've seen, in fact, up until this morning, I was on TikTok. I was getting ready for church and I just thought I should go, you know how people do live videos on TikTok, and I was just listening to people talking, and so people were so bent or so adamant. Like, there was actually a lady who was literally saying, if you buy a house within 2 years, within 4 years, within whatever, until you have your ILR or your citizenship in the UK, you don't have sense. Like, they were so adamant. I just might. I'm sure those people talking do not have houses. You used to call it Dabi Mosheda. Like, people believe that because they came to the UK, especially those ones that came like 20 years ago, 10 years, nothing against you guys, nothing against them. Because you can get, experience, knowledge from some of them. But these people believe that because they've suffered, you should also suffer. Because they couldn't achieve buying a house within 5 years, within 4 years, within 3 years, you too should not be able to buy a house within those years. And if you do, they believe you're not wise just because they didn't. I personally, we couldn't buy a house within, let's say, the first 2 years. I had so many people who came behind me, and by the grace of God, they bought houses before us just because of our personal circumstances, which I'm also explaining on my YouTube videos, because we've bought our own house now and I'm talking about it on my YouTube channel. So if you're not following me, you also subscribe on my YouTube page. You get more detail. That being said, I'm not going to then, house shame people who can afford it, who wants to buy it, and who has bought it. I don't understand this zeal to think you have the right to decide how a grown adult, especially even a grown adult with husband or with wife, how they decide to live their life when they decide or not to buy a house. So if you think they are not financially capable enough to buy a house, you think any lender will be enough to give somebody over 100,000 or say 200,000, 250,000 loan if they think you could not afford it. And I don't understand this concept of if you buy a house, she bought a house after 20 years, she's fresh. I know people who bought houses 20 years ago, and that was the best decision they've made in their life. See, this is our mentality. We have to change it. You have no right to decide when and when not somebody should buy a house, or when and when not they should buy a car. It is not my business. It is not your business. As long as it's not come to you to borrow money to buy that house, it is not your business. Even if they eventually buy that house and they're struggling, it is not your business. We have this Nigerian mentality that we think we have to control how people live their life. The fact that you don't want to buy a house until 20 years doesn't mean somebody else. Do you know how much they were buying houses 20 years ago? Do you know the value of those houses now? The house I was living with my husband, I checked when my landlord bought the house. He bought it for £40,000. That house now, the value is for over £120,000. And no value for money differs as well. So what is the shaming in all this? Saying people buy houses and now they are lame. You think somebody will buy a house that they cannot afford? Or you think government or somebody, a lender, will give somebody money to buy a house they cannot afford? Please let us stop all this entitlement and thinking that your life should be somebody else's life. I didn't buy a house 2 years in the UK, not because I didn't want to. In fact, I was looking at my book, my Jota recently. I was reading this, my red book, and I saw the year I started trying to buy a house. The year I started trying to buy a house. That was actually how we got to the 5 council that we moved to, because I was trying to buy a house. But because of some personal circumstance, we couldn't at the time buy that property. Okay, so the fact I didn't buy it when I was just 2 years in the country does not mean I will now shame people that can buy it. I made a video. I'm going to post it on my YouTube channel. I don't know when you're going to be seeing this video. I'm saying my landlord pays. Let me not talk about it. Let me not even talk about my landlord. But my house rent, when we were renting, was the last one was £720. My mortgage is currently 703. The house rent is not inclusive of council tax, of electricity, of my Wi-Fi, nothing. And I've been giving my landlord that money since the year I moved into this country. I've been giving landlords that money. If the day I move away from those property and I go to my property, that's the day I'm starting afresh. I'm not going to meet my landlord and say, please, can you give me back all that money that I've been spending? If you calculate 720 times, say you've been in the country for 5 years, 720 times 12 is how much? Times 5 is how much? If you had paid that money for deposit, or you have paid that money on your mortgage, if you decide to sell that house tomorrow, there's a tendency that you either get your money back, or at least you get something back. What is it that I say, hey, you're paying mortgage for 25 years? This is just my own opinion. You're paying mortgage for 25 years. So because of that, you shouldn't buy a property. So that means you're paying mortgage, which is almost the same as your rent for 20, and you're living in that property. You're living inside the property for 25 years, or you want to pay house rent for 80 years for the rest of your life. Whereas after 80 years, the house does not belong to you. Your children cannot inherit the house. Or you want to pay mortgage for 25 years. After 25 years, the property belongs to you. The property belongs to your children. I may have a different perspective, but please let me know your opinion in the comment section. And why do we think we should shame people who have decided after 1 year of moving to the UK or moving to any country to buy a property? It is their business. It is their cup of tea. What are they learning in the country? What did they learn? You say somebody, in fact, I was checking the comment section. Someone say, the UK will give you ILR after 5 years for a reason, so that you can learn the country about Canada that gives you permanent residency before you even leave your country. And once you get into the country, within a year, if you want to buy a house, you can buy a house. Okay? I know people who have bought houses when they, I know people who have been in this country for over 20 years. They bought their first houses. The first year they moved into this country, they still have the house up to today. And it is something they are grateful for. No pressure. Nobody is pressurizing you to say, go and buy a house. It's not by force if you can't afford it. But if you can afford it, why not? It is an investment. It's not like back home, like you have to pay cash you're paying, you're living in it, just like paying the rent, and you're living in the property. The only problem you have is when something breaks down, which even the house we lived before, if anything spoils in the property, my landlord will make me fix it. If I spoil anything, my landlord will make me fix it. When I was living, my landlord will say, look, the wall is not this, the wall is not that, your deposit is gone. So what are we on about? Please, I beg. Next.